So another great way to add impact is what we call an anecdote. Now, anecdotes, there are two different types that we tend to talk about when we're explaining this in our classes. One type of anecdote is like a funny story. So it could be like a joke. If you've ever seen Joel Osteen, he's a famous TV preacher down in Houston. He always likes to start his sermons with something funny. It's kind of a little joke. And some of those are probably true stories. Most often, though, they're probably just kind of funny stories that he tells just to make the audience kind of start laughing before he gets into his gospel message, right? So those are great anecdotes. They do take a little bit more practice, especially if you're not really skilled at telling jokes. Me personally, I like to stay away from them. I don't kind of tell jokes in my classes or in my keynotes much. But I will use anecdotes in a different way that actually give me much more impact, and you probably will get more impact as well in this type of anecdote. So an anecdote could be like a second person story or a third person story. So that would be like, for instance, let's say that I wanted to kind of prove to the audience how great I am at helping people reduce public speaking fear. Now, I can tell my own story, but they'll say, yeah, but Doug, you've been doing this for 20 years, so that's not really helpful. But if I can tell a story about somebody who I trained, who had a fantastic benefit or gave a fantastic speech in front of 200 people at a convention, if I tell that, that's an anecdote. I wasn't there. I didn't see that person give that speech in front of in front of 200 people. But if that person relayed that story to me and I tell that, it helps me build my credibility. So that's what we call a second person story. In a lot of situations, especially in the Fearless Presentations classes that we teach all over the world, most often when folks are trying to insert impact ideas into their presentation, they tend to use second person stories or third person stories more than even their own personal stories. And the reason why is because if I'm an executive and the higher I get in an organization, the less likely I am to have the stories that happened on the front line. I'm not going to see those from personal experience. I'm going to get those secondhand or third hand. Doesn't mean I can't use them. It just means that those types of stories take a little bit more practice. For instance, if I'm telling something from my own personal experience, it's really easy because all I have to do is play the video in my head, repeat back what I'm seeing on the video. If I'm trying to relay details or data or a story that somebody else has told me, I wasn't there. So I have to practice that a little bit more. I have to spend a little bit more time on making sure I'm delivering that really, really effectively. So I would encourage you, if you're in a situation where a second person story or a third person story is going to have more credibility than your own personal experience, to go to the people who were on the front line and get them to tell you that story or that you've heard last year and get them to tell it to you again. Then you repeat it back to them. Let them tell you if you're leaving out any of the details. Practice it 2, 3, 4 more times than what you would your own personal story, and you'll tend to do really, really well. So anecdotes, fantastic way to add impact to your presentation.